Welcome back. You here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about how jobs, skill sets, and effort are actually valued in the real world economy. Because about 6 months or so ago, I did a video and I mentioned that basket weaving is somewhat of an intricate profession or trade, if you will. So perhaps that would be rewarded in some cases. And this libertarian got really upset. Said, "No, the market's right. That's ridiculous." I tend to find these folks, many of them are wage slaves or have just an average income, and they're very confident of what the libertarians say on paper, but they don't pay attention to what's around them, because if they did, they'd probably find a way to make a lot of money off of something that's sort of goofy or silly, but effective. When it comes to basket weaving specifically, the underwater part, I think this is more of a meme, but the underwater part, in my experience, is that you have to soak the material for a while such that it becomes more flexible. You can twist, bend, tie it. And yes, your run-of-the-mill person is probably not making a ton of money, but if you can market it to the right crowd, absolutely, you're going to do better than most of these STEM guys. That's because if you note the work of Thorsten Veblen with luxury goods, certain products gain value based upon what sort of elite you have, how expansive it is, does it possess a lot of disposable income, is there a certain degree of stability, or it could be perception based as well. So as an example, for the longest time you had shrimp that was for poor people, and then all of a sudden it became this delicacy. Now I could understand that if you're living in Nebraska or the Sahara, but if you're by the coast, why would you consider shrimp a delicacy when it's in abundance? Because it had to be marketed and told to you in that way. Same thing with caviar. It was the food of poor Russian fishermen. And then Ivan the Terrible, or one of the Ivans, oh, it's the food of the gods. And now caviar is considered, oh, yeah, it's for refined people. The Anthony Bourdains of the world. It's just to recognize things are far more complicated than just, well, we value this because it's hard work or it's high IQ. Not necessarily. This is one of the reasons why, as I've noted before, at times, the person who's like a midwit is better adapted to be successful than the individual who is very intelligent, or is more perhaps strictly ideological in their approach. Then you have Beanie Babies. I mean, what's so special about stuffed animals that are colorful with TY tags? Well, for a while, that was the biggest thing ever. You had adults, teenagers going crazy. We had a couple of them from a thrift shop, and I remember some kid going, oh, that's a really rare one. It does not fit this sort of legal, rational, libertarian perspective that is based upon this great value you provided. I don't see the value in a stuffed animal, but other people do. Fidget spinners, slap bands. See, if you're a good libertarian, you would be looking for a way to market this stuff to emotion-driven, low IQ people instead of talking about how this purist system would be more ideal. And it's interesting, too, because it's not simply about the rich. There are obviously those wealthy folks who they drive an old car, they don't live in an expensive house. But because of cheap credit, the debt-financed economy, poor people can be going on Touch of Modern and on an installment plan, or even, let's say, a car. They can buy something they don't really need or can't afford, but they can try to live with that idea in mind. So it's not as simple as a rational decision maker just making his choice. No, it's far more complicated than that, and you have to be on alert for these trends. Think about folks bidding up GameStop. The business model is the problem, and I'm not supportive of that, but yeah, you have all this digital downloading going on, and people are bidding it up like, yeah, we stay together, we can keep the company alive. Good, you took on the hedge fund. I'm not hating on you for that, but it's not a viable thing that just because everyone bids it up, it's going to stay up. Someone's going to jump out and try to make a bunch of money. That's how stocks work. If you get in really late on a pump, you're probably going to lose everything. It's not everyone just does it. So you have to realize human behavior is not rational, especially in regards to the markets, investments, and of course different professions, as we'll soon see. Take Shaniqua here. She majored in BBBW, African American Studies. I'll take fries with that. Should have majored in STEM. No, not necessarily, because you pay attention to all the money that's been transferred by these corporations and wealthy white elites to not lower class black people, but it's the middle and upper class blacks. And creating these departments like diversity, inclusion, equity, DI, chief diversity officer, people like this can be paid a solid six-figure salary with benefits at a corporation or nonprofit to essentially make PowerPoints discussing microaggressions and check your privilege. It has very little utility for the rest of society. But because of present political trends, or maybe they think they're going to outreach to this new consumer base, they're going that direction. She has an easy job and she makes great money and gets good benefits. Now, you might have a guy who's a welder and he makes decent money, but unless he goes overseas or he has his own company, he might not make as much as she will. But he has to put himself in far more danger and do harder, more intellectually and physically demanding work on a regular basis. Welding, if you screw up, you have to go back and correct. Otherwise, you could have a structural failure. So we're not thinking about this stuff when we just go, well, it's because the market decided. The market decided what? The market does not value the welder, who is far more important. A good welder is far more important to all of us than a diversity inclusion person, but it doesn't matter because it's not that perfectly libertarian rational system that we want to believe. Or perhaps we have the following scenario. A strapping young Manaspherian goes off and works hard, gets his electrical engineering degree, long nights, not much time to party or get women, graduates, he has a job helping to design an electric grid. Fantastic. But now you've got this chick who puts on some booty shorts and does a shuffle dance on TikTok, and she becomes a multimillionaire in a couple of years. Or the dude making the dumb faces. Do you see value in that? Personally, I don't. I wouldn't send these people a dime. But society at large, for some reason, they want to be entertained or they get some creepy sexual fantasy, so that is what sends money in their direction. And again, how does that add up? You're putting in all that effort, you're doing something that actually matters, keeping the lights on, but they don't care. The fixation is the little meme character, right? Like the living NFT, if you will. Or you have Wall Street. Someone works in another sphere. They're like an ER nurse, even a garbage man, utility plant operator, firefighter. I mean, those are important jobs. They have very obvious importance to society, saving lives, keeping the environment somewhat safe, having semi-clean water to drink. But then you take a quant on Wall Street. It only exists because of finance capitalism, because of this parasitical model of moving money around, profiting off of interest, CDOs, manipulating futures. In 2008 when the oil prices went up really high, it wasn't because of we need to drill in Alaska or we need hybrid vehicles. It was because they were manipulating prices to make money. This would not exist unless finance capitalism was there. Just like some of these goods only matter because of the point in time in history that we're in. But on an everyday basis, they have no actual benefit to society. At least that's my opinion. Oh, well, this person works for Goldman Sachs. Look at them. They're parasites. They're ruining people's lives, raiding pension funds, destroying their 401ks to make money for the big man. And the market says that's a good thing. But those people, in reality, they're not good. They shouldn't be tolerated. The model should be done away with. That's why I think it's important to check yourself a little bit. Yes, it would be great if the market was purely rational and it was just men making the purchases, perhaps, because all that consumer female spending is another part of that too, where what they might spend money on, a lot of you guys would say is a bunch of BS. Well, guess what? They have incomes and they spend money, so that changes the dynamic dramatically. And like anything else, I hate to drag the dating stuff into this, but you think of the guy who just pumps and dumps the women versus the dude who simps and throws thousands of dollars to keep this chick around who's been run through by the football team. Because to him, she's a luxury good. To the guy who gets a bunch of them, whatever, there's always more to go around. But to this guy who has a scarcity, or he just perceives it as valuable because of the social norms, oh my God, I have to get that. Then there's another dude who's across the border paying for it, or getting a trad wife. So there's a lot of different elements at stake here. And we can't boil it down to the rational actor in the market because, as we know, people are emotional, trends come and go, and what you might think has no value today could easily have value in a certain sphere, in a certain region, or at a certain time.